It's close. I see something's going on, but there's no sound.
Give money to for the campaign. For the election.
Kamala, the Senate committee, Josh Stein. Let's see, who else did we give money to?
Do you give anybody else in North Carolina?
No.
We can hear you, Robert Oberfelder.
All right, good evening, everybody. It's that time, so we're going to get started. If you're in the room, if you can find your seats, and we'll have time at the end for you to continue catching up and chatting. It's been quite the week, so thank you all for coming out and joining our community tonight. We can share a joint passion with each other. I'm going to have some, well, first of all, if you don't know me, my name's Dave. I'm currently Wake Audubon Society's president. Get our program started. So
Dave, you're frozen.
y'all back with us online?
Now we're back. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. And then it's starting to be that holiday season. So just a reminder that the Christmas bird count is coming up. It's the 125th annual bird count. It's been run by the National Audubon Society. This year in our area, it's going to be on Saturday, December 21st. And so you can find information about that online, and we'll drop in the chat a way for people to let Brian O'Shea know that they are interested in participating. And Brian will be here with us next week or next month to talk more about the Christmas bird count. All right, a few fall conservation reminders. One, leave your leaves. It is important to leave leaves, provides winter habitat for insects, helps improve the soil. And we are nearing the end of our lights out season, but it continues until November 30th. So during this time of year, we encourage everybody to turn out their unneeded outside lights from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Otherwise, the lights can interfere with the bird migration, increases bird mortality during the migration. So if you're interested, we have way more information. We have a pledge online that you can sign. And just remember it goes through the 30th. So we have 2 volunteer opportunities coming up in the next month. So one is on Saturday, this coming Saturday, November 16th, from 9 to 11 a.m. we have an Adopt a Stream cleanup. So this is something we do every year at Biltmore Hills. If you're interested, you can find Mary Abrams. She's in the room. Or if you're online, we'll drop her email address so you can reach out to her. We'll provide drinks, snacks, trash bags, grabbers. You need to wear sturdy shoes, clothes that can get wet and dirty. Bring gloves if you have them, a bucket, hand clippers, anything else that might be helpful. So that is, again, 9 to 11 this coming Saturday. And then later this month, we have an annual opportunity where we at the Chenek Forest, where we prepare the woodcock habitat. And so it's from November 20, it's on November 23rd from 9 to noon. And if you're interested in that, we'll have you reach out to John Connors. He's been running this every year and runs our woodcock program later in the year in January or February. Again, bring gloves, garden tools, shears, hedge clippers, rakes, appropriate footwear. All right. Any questions on this so far? You all still with me? November 23rd.
Cheap cars.
Yes. And then, all right, hold on. I need to find this. So then, am I not online anymore here? No, I got it. All right, so next up, it is entering into our board election season. We have our annual board elections at our December program meeting. And so I wanted to share the slate of people who have been put their names forward to be on the 2025 board. Board members serve 1-year terms, except for the president. I'll be going into my 2nd year. And we vote on these generally as a slate. So we vote for all the names like as a package. And most of these people are in the room tonight. All of the board members up here right now are currently on the board, except Kevin. Kevin, you want to wave your hand? Kevin works at the state park system. I don't know if you want to say a few more words about yourself, Kevin, and why you're interested. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
I can be brief. Hello everyone, it's Kevin Durstow. I grew up in Raleigh, volunteering at the Museum of Natural Sciences here for 15 years probably. Mentee of John Gerwin and others at the museum. Is that Beane? He's here as well. in North Carolina Herp Society. And recently back in Raleigh after working in California as a biologist for a number of years and had the opportunity to join the board. Currently working for North Carolina State Parks with inquiry, inventory and monitoring for rare and feral plants and wildlife at all state properties. From Hurricane Link, excited for the opportunity, talked to Dave recently, and it sounds like there's a lot of good programs going on in a lot of ways to be part of the Wake Audubon Society, or part of the Wake Audubon community, and contribute to everything that's going on. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Kevin. And then I'll also note that it is not too late. If you are interested in joining the board or know someone who would be a good fit, come talk to me afterwards. We can continue to add people's names to the slate until the election next month. And I will point out that we are looking in particular for someone who would be interested in being our treasurer. We're an all volunteer organization, so things are run by our volunteer board. We also have lots of other volunteer opportunities, whether it's to lead committees. So for example, we have a conservation chair, conservation committee chair that we're looking for right now. We're also looking for a volunteer coordinator. So if you're interested in learning more about how to get involved in a volunteer leadership capacity, come find me afterwards or send me an email. And then lastly, do we have anybody who is here for their first time? All right, well, we have a deal for you. We offer people who are joining us here for the first time, we'll pay for your first year of membership in the Audubon Society. It includes membership in the local Wake Audubon Society and the National Audubon Society. So if you're interested in getting a free membership, come find me afterwards and I'll get your information and we'll get you set up. All right, any other announcements, fellow board members? Okay, well, with that, I'm going to bring John up here for our program this evening.
Thanks everyone for coming out. Yeah, so there have been a few changes. I'm filling in for our plan speaker. She couldn't make it. But she's been having a little trouble, and we waited till the last minute to see what she might be able to do, but it just wasn't going to work. So we're filling in, and also our plan for what we were going to do next month. It wasn't quite working out for next month, and we're pushing it to next year. So I asked Brian O'Shea, the other bird guy here, to fill in next month to talk about a little like a historical perspective of the Christmas bird count, and maybe some highlights of some of the birds in our area on the Christmas count. That was actually a request from someone else with an idea. So that's what we're going to do. And then in light of that, in light of the Christmas bird count, in light of birding and all that, I thought, well, since I'm filling in, it was kind of last minute, I'm gonna, I pulled together some of my worst slides. And I also got some from Bob. I grabbed a few from Jeff, because I thought, well, you know, that's, I'm gonna hide that. How do I hide that?
What happened?
Which one? This. All right, that's out of the way. So that should be good. And because we all see things differently when we're out there looking at birds. And so I thought it'd be a little fun for you to stare at some of these things. If you have a piece of paper, you can take notes. If not, that's okay. If you're at home, you can take notes. I'm going to go through these things. I'm not going to tell you right away, but we can come back. We'll look at a few and then come back to see what they are. probably everyone can see what this bird is on the first slide. Can you, I can't, is anybody here online watching the, I can't see the chat, but, well, they still see the agenda, so there's a, let me see what it's at here.
Stop share and then.
Oh, I gotta reshare it. That one, yeah.
Do we do this? How do you make it bigger again?
Mhm. There we go, your notes pop up on the screen, so if you wanna, if you wanna comment on what you think the birds are as we go through. Any idea what you think this is? Anybody wanna holler out? It's a cedar waxwing, you can see the yellow tip of the tail. So that's an easy one. All right, so believe it or not, there's a bird there. But as we go through these things, some will be easier than others. There's actually one field mark, if you can even tell, like which end of this is the bird. But you gotta pick one side or the other, but you just think, as you look at these things, what do I see on this blur? Is there anything at all? Well, I can give you some hints. So, and if if you want me to zoom in on something, I can back out and zoom in and that sort of thing. But so we'll start with some raptors. We'll come back to that other one. But we'll start with some raptors. So again, these things are out of focus. They're far away, a little bit fuzzy. You're walking along and you see this bird fly over. And you may have an idea already. You may not. Anything jump out at you when you see this bird in terms of the field marks. And when I say marks, it's more than just what kind of color or pattern. It's also the shape. The pointed wing, somebody pointed out. Yeah. Anything else you see on it? He's got a bit dark head. And if those pointed wings and something flying around like that, there's really only a few birds with that kind of a shape. And if you look at the proportion with the tail, you might see some gulls that look like this, but that's not quite right. You would see falcons that look like this, maybe a nighthawk, but what group of bird do you think it looks most like? A falcon, and I would say that's what it is, and the only thing that really has a dark head like that is a peregrine. So this is a peregrine flying high over downtown Raleigh, and that may be all the look you get, but it's good enough with those just few little marks. So let's see some other ones. If you saw this in your backyard, what do you think? What do you see? But I think we see that what's a pretty dark gray back. And what about the head? Pretty dark on the head. And it's got the little, streaking underneath. What else? Anything else that you see on it? I mean, looking hard, do you see anything else that would stand out to you? And you'll have to speak up.
Light color?
In the leg, that's streaking on the leg. And then if you look behind the leg, the bird actually has something that stands out on these guys, which is that white vent. And that combination, there aren't many. I mean, would you agree it's a hawk because of the way it's perched and what it's doing? Can you tell what it's probably doing? It's trying to eat something, or it's eating something. And you might be able to see, I don't know if this arrow will work right there. So that's a bird foot sticking up, so a little bird. And so it's eating a bird. There are only a few hawks that eat birds, but there's some that are gray. There are only a few that are gray like this, and to have that dark cap. But that white vent, that really sets it off. Right under the tail here, but right under so on the inside of the tail, so right below the belly. They refer to it as a vent, and those white feathers really stick out on a Cooper's hawk. It's the one that accipiter, the bird-eating hawk, where it really sticks out. So that, and it's an adult because of the gray and the dark cap. And I'll show you some other marks on that bird as we go along. So shape-wise, what does this remind you of? A buteo, right. So that's the genus of hawks that are red-tailed, red-shouldered, broad-winged, rough-legged. You know those birds. So this is in that group because of the shape. Tail's a little shorter, broader. The wings are a little bit broader a lot broader than the falcon, and broader than an accipiter, which is what Cooper's and Sharp's and hawk are in. Actually, the Cooper's hawk changed now. It's a different genus. So and different from Sharpshin, so interesting genetics being done. So of the field marks on this bird, what do you see now? The which? Up on the patagial, which is under the wing right in here. It's white here and it's got a leading edge. That is a mark. That's something to watch out for whenever the raptors are flying around. And especially these guys vary a lot, so it's good to know where you are. I'm in North Carolina, and then Mary is referencing the belly band. So you can see it across here. And then what's notable is that it's set apart by this white. Some birds sometimes show the dark. When you're out making observations, when you're not sure, just write everything down. What does the tail look like? Can you see any of the markings on it or not? It is banded. So just know that these raptors, they take 2 years to reach their adult plumage. And when they're young, the backside of most of them is a little browner, and it's also the tails are brown and banded. And so so you're out there looking around and the bird starts screaming and flying over, and it's one of the parents. So how does this look in comparison? They're pretty similar. But what's the difference? The tail. This tells you the adult. It tells you the species of both then. And so those are red-tailed hawks. You can't quite see, maybe you can see it. Actually, you can kind of see it in this image. If you look really close at the tail, you will see there are some black bars on it. And so I'm lying a little bit because it's not really the parent. Those black bars, these birds only show up in the winter because the birds with the black bars on the adult tail, they come from Canada. It's a different population. It comes from, we used to think they were from out west because western red-tailed have these black bars. And then they figured out, no, they're actually a population in Canada that also has black bars. So we only see these in November, December, January, and February. All right, so here's another hawk, pretty easy, right? Well, what do you see? Anything that stands out to you? So he's pointing out that there are some bands on the tail. It's like a black and white banding. So I would say, are they equal width, or is one wider than the other? How do they look? So the black looks wider than the white. And the white is, pretty dirty looking. Can you see the wingtips on this bird? Can you tell just how long they are? Can you separate those from the tail at all? I know it's not great, but they're coming right down to the bottom of the tail. So it's worth noting that sort of thing. There are, the birds like the buteo, they will go anywhere from half to the full length, and it depends on how they're holding it, and the falcons will go all the way, but the accipiters would not. They're usually halfway or even a little higher. So it's worth noting things like that. And then the color of the back is pretty brown. And wow, I can actually see some, I don't know if you can see right up there. I didn't notice that until just now. That color way up there is just a little different, reddish brown. So this pattern of that striping where it's wider on dark and lighter narrow, with just the rest of the coloration is a red-shouldered hawk. So if, now what about this guy? wish this would stop. Stop. I don't have a good thing. There. Beautiful in focus shot. So, you know, it's a little, look at the wingtips. I mean, they're halfway, a little more. There is variation. The color, do you see, and the tail, how does the tail look compared to the other one? Similar, different? People are nodding their heads similar, yeah. So it is similar. I mean, it's a little different, but remember that the birds can take 2 years. So this is surely a younger one, a bird in its first year, a red-shouldered hawk, and the other bird was probably a young one in its second year, and it was already, it may have already molted some of the tail feathers, which is why they look blacker and whiter, where this is brown and white, but the wide dark bands and the narrow white bands. So if that's all you saw with the wingtips are going down beyond half and a brown-backed bird, you would know it's an immature red-shouldered hawk. So they're both red shoulders. And then amazingly enough, you're out there. Hey, why isn't it going? Ah, you froze up on me. Don't make me have to do this. Well, there we go. So again, we're in North Carolina. We're getting ready for the camp. This guy starts screaming and flying over. So what do you see on that? What stands out? Or what things to you stand out?
Wings are wide.
The wings, they're wide. The pattern, do you see the pattern on this bird? So that pattern, that black and white, dark gray and white, there's nothing like it in North Carolina except an adult red-shouldered hawk, the only bird. So if you've got one like this where it's kind of backlit, it's actually a great view. And you can see the pattern of dark band here that's wider, and this is the narrow white band. And so it holds even as they age from young to adult. The pattern is there, it's just that it turns into a black and white pattern. The bird is no longer brown. Once it's done its molt, like in its 3rd or 4th year, it's an older bird. It gets this really strong pattern. The other thing you can look for on these birds, if they're flying around and you've got good light hitting it, especially the backlight, and it's down here at the base of these primaries. So like right here, about 5 or 6 of these primaries, do you see how they're paler? A lot paler? That pattern actually holds in a lot of the birds. It may not be 100%, but I've seen it in well over 80% of the red-shouldered hawks, including the immatures. So if you're really not sure about an immature and you get it to fly, you will see that. It's like a little half or a crescent moon in the wing. So it stands out. All right, well, we're back to that war, and a beautiful view. All right. Do you think it looks like that one we started off with? I mean, does the back color look similar? Does that striping that you saw on the leg of that other one look similar here? The reason I wanted to show this is that if you get the bird to turn around, or even if you could just get a good look at the tail, I know it's hard to see here, but it shows. I had to zoom in right down here at the bottom, but this tail feather right here, this is one of the outer tail feathers, and the other 2 in the middle are the central tail feathers. So you can see they're different in length, and it's 3/4 to an inch difference, and it's pretty noticeable when the bird's all out in the open, and maybe its back is to you, or even when it's flying. And this is how, this is why the Cooper's hawk's tails look rounded. So when you read about them in the field guide and they say they're rounded, this is why, whereas the sharp-shinned hawk, those outer tail feathers are almost the same length as the central tail feathers, and thus it looks a little bit square shaped. So again, that's just one of those little things to keep an eye out for. These are adults. The immatures are streaked underneath, so they kind of look like an immature red-shouldered hawk. I didn't want to scare you with everything, but there's the bird in my backyard. So now you can see its face. You can see more of the vents, and I want you to see the tail. You see the rounded shape of the tip of the tail that's showing up below the branch. So it caught a little house finch in my backyard. One of the ones with the eye disease. All right, there's the easy one. Actually, it's not so easy. What's that? The tail looks a little bit squarer, and can you see where the wingtip is? So it's like right here. So it's going out a little further, and it's hard to tell because it's backlit. I actually put it on the computer and I changed the lighting, but not for you, just for me, just to make sure. Okay, can you see anything about you? Can you see anything going on in the tail? Can you guess? Can you think that you see something? And if so, what? So you see some bands. So the question is, as difficult as that is, the banding, does it look the same or different? In other words, the red shoulder that look different, do these look like a red shoulder or do they look more like they're equal? The white is wider. Okay, so the white is wider. And that bird then, if you got lucky and it flew down and landed, you'd be, oh, great, but you still can't see the tail. But this is what broadwing hawks look like in the front. And the bird that in the other picture was a broadwing, they have the wider white bands when they're adults. When they're young, they're banded like a red shoulder or a red tail. They don't have banded tail, but here's an adult, and it's actually probably a 3-year-old bird that still has yellowish eyes. They get orangier as they get older, but this is the barn they have. It's not as deep like chestnut color or red shoulder or a Cooper's hawk, and it's certainly not black belly band with a white chest like a red tail. It's also a lot smaller bird, but you can't tell that from the photo. Now you're not going to see that on the Christmas count, but you know, they're back in April. So. All right. What do you see here?
The eye ring.
Oh, you see the eye ring. Good for you.
Yellow beak.
A yellow beak. All right. Well, good. And you see what kind of tree it's in, right? Can you tell? It is a Christmas tree. It's a Fraser fir. So consider that, you know, it's a Fraser fir. Where are those growing in North Carolina? Way up high. And yeah, even if you're on a Christmas tree farm, you're still going to be up high. They grow up high. So, and in this case, I was up high. I was over Mount Mitchell. And it's foggy, it's cloudy, and my mind was just not thinking of what this was. You know, I thought, wow, what is that? Of course, the bird on the left is what I first saw. And it took me a while to get the bird to turn his head to the right. So, I mean, what bird would be up high, and then what color is the back? Grayish. And a bird with a yellow bill. How many of those are there? You know your birds. A robin with a yellow bill, and that's what this is, way up high. And I tell you, I did not think that at first. Now, it wasn't looking at me, and for 10, 15 minutes, I was like, what is that? And then it turned out to be a robin. So I had to take this picture. All right. I'm back to what kind of bird? I don't know why it keeps doing that, keep telling it to stop it. Where is it like? So what? All right, well, all right. There was supposed to be a way for it to just stop doing that. In the old days, it would be like, hide the floating reading control, maybe that's it. Yeah, what kind of bird is this? A duck? No. A woodpecker? No. A small raptor. What does it look like the wingtips are doing? They're pretty long. So it's probably not an accipiter type. It's not Cooper or sharp-shinned. The way it's looking at you, do you see anything on its head at all? Yeah, he's pointing out that there's some white and Mary some white lines. I don't know of any other bird except the one that would show in this plumage a small raptor with white lines. So you can see them migrating around North Carolina pretty much fall, winter, spring. Any other ideas? You see the little bar of splotchiness on the underparts. So with those long wings, what group do you think it might be in? A falcon. It's a little falcon. It's a let's look at, I think I got one more. Come on, it's like balking when I don't know why the PowerPoint doesn't want to move. Well, I guess it gives us time to think about it. Maybe if I go backwards. No.
As you possibly go to screen, because now the arrow.
There's the mount. I wonder if I can get this guy. Sometimes the little arrows come up down here, but they're not coming up this time. So unusual. No. Whoa, that didn't even let me back out of mine. Usually if I hit escape, I can get out.
Right down the bottom now.
That's really simple. Hello. Hang on, I might have to get drastic. Yeah. Maybe I'll just stop it for a second. I'm gonna stop sharing for just a second. Huh? Oh. I gotta see what's going on here. Well, you know, it did it, but I don't know. Let's see if I can share it again. I'll try it again. So Jeff Beane sent this over. So it's the same species. You can see what it's doing. So the real question is, what's it eating? What kind of bird? You're laughing at me. Well, what do you see on that bird? What stands out on that poor bird? The what? The claw, the hand, the claw. That long thumb of that bird. It's only one bird I know of that has that, which is a water pivot, or I guess, what do they call it now? American pivot? Yeah, American. I'm too old. So yeah, only the pivots have that hind claw like that. So this hawk, this falcon's eating a pivot, and there's that same white line over the eye, but you can see it's a little more focused. Anyway, any thoughts on what kind of falcon that might be? A merlin. It is a merlin. Good shot. All right. What's that? Yeah, merlins can be dark, and the females are brown, and their brown can be really dark, and then the males, that one looked a little more like a young male that had the slaty gray. And, so here's a good shot from Bob. You can tell that one, right? And why can you tell? Why can you tell? Anybody at home can type in too. I can see her typing if you. Actually, I don't know if I can see it. I see a lot of chatting, but I don't see it.
They say it's a Mississippi kite.
Can't quite see it. All right, I can't quite see the chat. So somebody said it looked like a kite. You did?
Mississippi kite.
A Mississippi kite. And why do you
That's
say?
from online.
Why do you say that?
They-
Oh, somebody online said it. Oh, great, thank you.
They eat dragonflies while flying.
Yes. So this bird is eating something while it's flying, and the only raptors that do that are kites. So right away you know it's a kite. And we only get Mississippi kite and swallowtail kite. And maybe you're not sure. You're trying to get a look, and then all of a sudden the bird sees you down there and it turns to attack. And it look, oh, it won't do it again. I don't know. This thing is like, it's gonna, I wonder if I should just not do the full screen. There's something wrong with it. I'm stopping it again. There's something wrong with the PowerPoint because this is a better view than this. Why is it like this? I sort of feel like that's what I want. But I'm trying to get it to not. Okay. I'm gonna see if I can do that. Let me try this again for the folks at home. I'm just going to show this. I'm just going to minimize that, but it won't let me. That's right. All right, so that's really not long to go. Really long on the computer. Well, there's your bird. It turned around. It dived toward you. Kind of take your hair off your head. But so there's the backside. And so it's a square tail, gray on the back. And that little bit of white on the trailing edge of the wing, you can actually see it in the photo here when the sunlight hits it. So Bob got these photos down at Yates Mill Pond. And just when you think you've learned everything about them, then a bird flies over calling at you and it looks like this. So what does this look like? Somebody said it looks like a juvenile, and why? Why would you say that? Because why? It's the same shape of the tail. I mean, it's got a similar tail. It's got a similar shape. Got the black around the eyes. So what it's doing, you can see it's molting. And they said what?
It's an osprey.
Right, it looks like that because of the tail and because of this right here. I mean, that's a good guess, but the osprey, this is actually a molting Mississippi kite. And what you would see on the osprey, you would see a tail similar to this. You would see more of the wing like this, but they have this sharp angle in the wing or and up at the wrist. So their wings actually look like a W or upside down W when they're flying. It's real different. Whereas this kite is nearly straight out. What stands out, somebody pointed the black in the face. So this bird is acquiring, you can see the gray body. It's got the molt of the adult in here, and here are the adult feathers of the wings coming in. And once it finishes more of the primaries, it'll start molting the secondaries, and then it'll molt the tail. That's a pretty wild bird, but they're not breeding in Wake County, so you know you're gonna be seeing them more and more. Oh yeah, everybody's favorite. So what kind of bird is this? And if anybody sees it online, you can let me know if they.
Like waiting.
Looks like a wading bird. I would agree. Someone's guessing a night heron. It is a type of night heron. There are 2 flavors of night heron around. And what's one of the best ways to tell them apart? The head and the bill. And where's that bird's bill? What an uncooperative bird. The bill, shape, size, and color is they're very different. But it turns out, so are some of the like coloration on the back of the bird and the white spots, believe it or not, if you when you look at those the shape of them, just look at the shape of that bird, which was more on the coast, but we sometimes see them around here, and then the shape of this one. So these are a little more, what I would say, triangular, and the way that the markings are a little bit bolder, and then this one is just a little plainer, looking a little smudged, but the shape of these more fan shape. So and this immature is a black crowned night heron, and this one is the yellow crown, and they have the bigger, fatter bill. All right, good. You got that into the night heron. Here's a good one.
Second one is yellow, first one is black.
Right, the first one's the black crown, and the second the yellow crown, but we're not seeing the legs either on that first one, and certainly right. And so, but just sitting there, you can tell by the way they're perched. I mean, you can tell by that white patterning and the pattern on this bird. This is different, where this is usually these guys, the yellow crown, more clean cut, but these guys, this is just more of a fan shape to me, and this is more of a triangular shape, these white spots. And that this one, I hope you know what it is, because I don't. Now Bob's out there. Bob, what is this bird? You know what it is? Who said? I know, I first thought it was an ibis. And then when I zoomed in a little, I wasn't sure, although it's so fuzzy. My first thought was ibis. But my second thought was when I zoomed in a little bit more on my computer, there was a little bit of, to me, it was a strong pink wash on it. So I don't know if Bob's out there, but I know that I'm seeing, what's in the background? It looks like, she guys what? Yeah, that was my final answer, was roseate spoonbill. I know Bob went looking for some to photograph, and so I suspect that's what that is. All right, now you're off to, and you get a really good look. I know that's not fair. This one's not fair. But the bird on the left. So the wingtips are extended even beyond, and then the tail, and then the one on the right is almost the same. But the coloration on the bird on the left, there's a lot of brown in it, and the one on the right is it's just all black. So if you had to guess, just what group, any thoughts on what these might be, just from the shape of these? Vultures, that's right. Good observation. So they're vultures, and so the one that has the brown is the turkey vulture, and the black vulture is by its namesake all black. But this one did have a black head. The immature turkeys have a black head, so you would look for things like the brown in it, or if it flew, you would see the shape of the tail would be a little more rounded on it. If this bird flew, you would see a little bit of those white markings on the shafts of the primaries. This bird's actually showing some up above, which was interesting to see. All right, let's get to a small one.
John,
Yeah,
someone asked online, how can you tell the one on the right isn't like a crow?
right. I was afraid someone would ask that. So, so, the, actually, if we can hold on a little bit, they're coming up. They're coming up. If we can get that far, we may not get that far. I'll skip to the end. If we get to the end and run out of time, but we haven't gotten to the crows, we'll get to it, and then I'll show you. All right, you're on the Christmas bird count, and you see a bird like this. What are the field marks you're seeing? You see some wing bars, right? I mean, they stand out. And then anything else, like from the head to the tail? Got a bit of like an eye line through it, through the eye, even a little bit of pale over the eye.
It's very popular.
You know, it's what?
I said it's fashionable these days.
The that color of the throat, I mean, it's not very strong, but there's something there, there's some kind of a wash. So you would note that. The who? What do you see? It looks pale, like yellow or orange, and then and a little bit of white under the tail. So he's talking about this right here. Let's look a little closer at the feet. This is what he's talking about. So this is the same bird, and they are very pale. This is a different bird of the same species. You see the pale feet, the toes. What kind of bird do you think it is, based on its just shape, bill, and all that? A warbler. There's only one warbler that has what are, like I call it, straw-colored toes. And that's the blackpoll. And I saw one on the Christmas count 2 years ago, and that's the bird on the left. That's a blackpoll. So they have this pale, buffy wash, or it can be yellowish, and sometimes it's pale, streaky. That little bit, it's just not, it's a fall plumage warbler, and the females are the immatures. It's not very dramatic. No. What about it?
Is that what you said?
Yeah, this Bob's fifth photo here shows it really well. It's the only warbler I know of that shows that. Everybody else has like brown or black. So if you're lucky enough to see it, even here it shows up, and he's saw it in the other photo earlier that it shows up. You can see it. We saw it, Brian and I saw that color when we were out. It was at Pullman Park 2 years ago. All right, you're out there looking, doing your migration birding. Maybe you're in the mountains and you see this guy. So what do you see? And it's gray. It's gray, and the other marks are some yellow bars on the wing, and the bill. What's that bill look like? And so, what kind of bird does it look like? Group. What group of birds? With that bill, little pointy. A what? Another warbler. It is another warbler. And notice that it's got some white under the tail. Whenever you get a chance to see these warblers and you get a chance to see under their tail, they break out in sort of a broad group. They'll be like, there's a group of 5 that have one kind of white and black, or white and a pattern of white and gray, and then the others, it's all a little different. I'll show you a diagram in a second. And sometimes it's not the only thing you can use, but it helps you when you have other features. So what's it got on his face or head, anything? So how many warblers do we know in there that are gray like this and might have a little yellow on them? Golden wing, anything else?
That's the guess online.
Do what?
That's the guess online.
Anybody have any? That's the guess online. So, then let me ask you, I'm gonna skip ahead there. Let me ask you about this one real quick. What does that look like? Same, a little different? They're pretty similar? Alright. So the one little difference is like just right in, it's hard to see the face and all that. So it's in that group. So this one is one of the hybrids, the Brewster's warbler, and the wing bars, they're barred, and the golden wing is more of a patch. And so that second one that I showed you was the golden winged. So and they were both in the same area. We were helping Amy Tom show that a couple years ago. This is one of the birds she was trying to catch. It's called Brewster's. So when golden wings and blue-winged warblers hybridize, all manner of young are produced, and you can get a bird that looks more like a blue-winged, or you can get a bird that looks more like a golden wing. And this bird, but they're in between. So this bird has, it's hard to see from the sunlight, it's got a little bit of yellow wash, which is from the blue-winged. And it's got wing bars, which is from the blue wing, but they're yellow from the golden wing. But the golden wing is more of a patch. And then it's got some black, but not all black. It's actually got a little line, which is a blue wing. It's a black line through the eye, but it has yellow on the cap like a golden wing. And it's gray on the back like a golden wing. So, and if they're real yellow, and they'll have blackish throat and face, they're called Lawrence's warbler. And those are apparently like an F2 hybrid. This is an F1, and the F2s are even more, but they're just different. So interesting. But they're around. All right, real quick. You got a quick look at this guy. What's he look like? Who said that? What did you say? A bobbling. It is a bobbling. So it's a black bird with that buffy and that bold white streak. Not, it's not a great look, but it's a look. All right, here's another look from the back side. And what do you see? Something that looks like a sparrow. Why is that? What has it got? What are the marks there? A lot of brown and streaky. What about the head? It's got 3 white stripes and dark stripes. All right, and then you hear something off to the side, and this bird shows up. It looks like this. Is that the same bird as the previous? Is it different? Different? All right. Is this a sparrow too? Is the other one a sparrow? Is this a sparrow? What do you think this one is? I like that pause. Go back to this one. What do you see on, look at the legs. You see the legs. Anything around the tail that you see? Anything you think you see? You want to make it up a little bit? That's okay. Look hard. I mean, it's not much, but believe it or not, that little line right there is one of his feathers. That little white line. So, you got brown birds running on the ground, but there aren't many with long legs like that. And really with that kind of stripy head and that what looks like a little bit of white on the outer tail feather. Really, on a couple birds I know that could do that. And this one, it turns out, is a eastern meadowlark. So, because really there isn't much with those long legs, quite like this. This one is not a meadowlark. I think we can agree. So what makes this, so we're left with what? I know, there's some, what's the bill look like? to you? What other bird might it remind you of? It's kind of like a grosbeak. It is, it's kind of like it. Anything else that you might think of? Yeah, well, it's actually, the bill is also similar to like a red-winged blackbird. The next time you see one, take a look at the conicalness of it. It's not as conical or as big as a grosbeak. It's, a little more of a, little narrower, but it's very similar because it's another blackbird. There's the female bobbling, or in the fall, the males molt into this plumage. That one and female redwings often throw people for loops. All right, here's an easy one. You're at your feeder, you look out the window and flashes in and out. And it just looks like the color more of a purple finch than a house finch, right? Or do you think it's more purple or more house? This side says purple, this side says house. All right. Well, we'll look at a picture at the end. We'll skip to the end. There's your golden wing, and there's what I mean about the yellow patch in the wing. This is typically what the pure golden wings look like. You recognize sort of the group that it's in. A thrush. Well, that's great. That's great. That's a great start because that narrows it down to like 5 options. And you can then narrow it down with other features. You look at the head, you look at the breast, and then you look at the back. If you can see the tail, you look at the tail. Anything stand out to you on either of these images? The spots that are on it, and it's hard to see the spots. They like it's hard to see the shape, but I didn't really zoom in on them. You could later zoom in and you would notice their shape is different from some of the other thrushes. There's actually subtle but notable differences in how they look and also the density of them. But the thing I will point out is the face on this bird and the way the eye looks. So, and I will say that in comparison to the next one, do you see the difference in, especially, and remember that cameras and computers can kind of mess up the color, but this one's a little more true to the color. But do you see the difference in the eye? So we're going to go back, the one on the left especially, and also over on the right, you see how white the chest, upper chest is, the throat, and then on this one, it's got that wash. So you have 2 different thrushes that show up in my backyard, and that eye thing is, again, even though it's not 100%, I would say most of the time, and I mean like 90%, it looks, you see this buffy line and buffy wash, and that's your commoner, more common Swainson thrush. And then when you see these guys without it, it is a great cheap thrush. And this was in, it was like late September, early October. For a while I thought, could it be some type of hermit thrush? But the spotting is different. The hermits have a different shape. They're more triangular, different from these guys. And then there was this guy who showed up, and I thought, is that another thrush? Does that look like another thrush to you? Or something else? Beautifully composed photo. And I'm not talking about the sparrow. The bird on the left. All right, I'll give you a hint. We'll zoom into the head, because that's where the action is, right? So what do you see on the head? We got that blackish line. Why do you think it has it? Because he's what? an ovenbird, somebody said. So it's an ovenbird. So those black lines border that orangey crown on the head. And my kitchen windows are very dirty and I don't clean them. So all the photos look like this when I'm going out the kitchen, better than nothing. I can't train the dog to wash windows. And then here's one that Bob sent me. Now, again, you think about the head and the bill shape and all that, like what kind of bird? You want to think about what group of birds are you looking at? Is it a jay or a crow, or is it a woodpecker? Is it a vireo? Is it a warbler? What kind of sparrow? What kind of bird does it look like? The bill shape, that narrow, pointy bill shape is a warbler. We've seen that now several times. So if we get them in the winter around here, I've had, years ago, I had a chestnut sighted on my Christmas count when I was doing over on Ebenezer Church Road. And then we've had black and white warbler, and I had the blackpoll. So you never know, things could hang around. But so, it's hard to tell on this if you don't know the heads of warblers, but there's really only one that looks like this. What feature do you think makes it stand out then? The eye line is one. Anything else? And the throat. So Mary has pointed out, and she knows this because she saw one earlier this year, up close and personal, because we caught one. So, and what warblers have that eye line? Are you familiar with, anybody familiar with the ones that, there's really two that stand out, and they're water thrushes. And so, one of them has a white eye line that's fairly same width as it goes back, and the other one flares a little bit more. And then the one that has the flared eye line also has a whiter throat. This one has the speckling in the throat. So keep those things in mind. When you're looking, you might think that doesn't mean anything, but in this case, it does. It tells you that this one is the northern water thrush. So looking at bird heads again and bills, again, I asked, what group of bird do you think this is? Like, where does it fall out? Is it a vireo, a warbler, a sparrow? Looking at the bill and the head. Uh-oh, no cookies here. Anybody online guessing? So somebody mentions it looks like a kinglet. So it's got a small bill, and why would it look like a kinglet? Probably they're seeing some of that green on the back, right? What else do you see on the bird? It looks like it's got some yellow. Where at? On the front of it there? Like right on the side here. It's green around here. What's the color up here? It's got some tiny red dots. That's a good spotting. Bob took this photo. And what about the eye? Do you see anything here? It's got a white eye ring. And what about the color of the head overall? Gray. So, that narrow bill, then you look, there's really only one bird that is a gray head with a white eye ring. And they're not common around here, but they show up from time to time, and when they do, people run off to see them. But it's a warbler. That bill is narrow, insect-eating bird, and it's flitting around in those dead leaves, probably looking for bugs, hiding in the dead leaves. So this is a Nashville warbler, but it's the only one with that gray head and the eye ring. That's all you need. It just so happens that they also have those little reddish brown spots on them. And there's one other warbler that has those. Actually, there's a couple, but they're a bit concealed. And there's one other bird that has a concealed, and we say it's orange, and we call it the orange crown warbler. And unless you get them in the hand and pull the feathers back, it's hard to see it. And they do look more like the orange of the ovenbird, whereas this is more like a reddish brown, a chestnutty color, but they are related. So anyway, that's a good shot. But again, all you need is the head and the eye ring. That head color, the eye ring, you know what that is. All right, another backyard bird. This one was in the summer, but it was late summer. 30 windows again. But any rough ideas? What group? And where's it hanging out? It's on the ground. Another thrush, it looks like, I agree. So of all the thrushes we've seen, does it look like any of the other two? It doesn't really, not to me anyway. The backside, there's some color, but what is it like, or how is it? Is it very strongly patterned? Is it a gradation or what? It's kind of a gradation. And the tail is pretty dull looking, but you see the color up on the doors, up on the back more, on the upper back more. And the reason for that, and what do you see on the head? There's a trick question. There is a white eye ring, that, and what else? These white spots. So what's happening is that bird is molting in the head. And so those are the bases of some of the feathers coming in, and they look white. But they're kind of grayish white, and they're gonna disappear in a week or two when the bird's feathers grow in, and there'll be the color of the back right here. This sort of reddish brown will go all up over the head. So there's the one thrush with the reddish brown head, right, and then in the summertime around here, we usually only got in the Piedmont we get the wood thrush. So this is a young wood thrush. All right, we're gonna come back to the other bird that people didn't believe me. Anything you see on this image, anything at all, any color, any pattern, anything? Why? Okay, so you're seeing a little bit of orange and brown, and then the other buffing. So now what I'm going to do is give you the big hint and show you it sitting in focus. All right. No, but you saw the one feature that tells you what kind of bird, like what group is this in? What does it look like? I mean, is it a warbler, a sparrow, a thrush? It's another thrush. So, and there are two thrushes that have reddish brown. One is in the head and one's on the tail. Does this bird have it in the head? No. And you can barely see it, but it's down here in the tail. And that's actually what you were seeing up here at the tail of this bird as it flew off the suet feeder. It's that, the sunlight was hitting it. So that tells you that it's the hermit thrush. So you're now seeing hermit, Swainson's gray cheek, and wood thrushes. You are ready to go. The hermit thrushes are, of course, here in the winter. Occasionally, people report Swainson's in the winter. It's pretty rare. Talking about the bird on the left, and the bird on the right is the same species as on the left. I'm talking about that middle bird. That's the cute little one that's looking over toward the finch. So this one and this one, do you recognize that? I mean, you might. All right, well, what stands out like on the field marks here? White wing bar, the yellow on the throat, and the back. You see that patch? You see it over here? All right, because that's the only bird that has that. There's only one. It is a northern purlin. So that's the only. So if you're lucky enough to see this one at eye level, which I did, and this of course was below eye level, and it looks like I cleaned the windows, that thing. Wow, I guess I should do that more often. Yeah, northern purlin. Again, that narrow and pointed bill for insectivores. Some of the warblers switch to fruit in the winter. A number of them will come to your suet feeder during migration. I've had, of course, yellow rumps will eat suet in the winter. I've had black-throated blues come to my suet feeder during migration, so, they will switch around. Cape May, Tennessee, they are nectar feeders in the winter. But that narrow bill helps you put it in the family. Pardon me? This is a male. This one?
Yeah.
This patch on the back, you mean? It's, I'm seeing it as, it's really more gray. Yeah, it's a real gray-headed bird. It's probably reflecting some stuff. It might even be reflecting some of the greenish off, but it's actually pretty gray. What about this guy? The young bird? Because of why? Yeah, we call it the gape at the base of the bill. Baby birds have it. Baby bird bill. When they're begging for food, the adults can see where to put it. I know it's not an easy one at all. A bird's not doing anything like what it's supposed to be doing. But if you want to make guesses, fine. That's what. Yeah, the tail looks dark. And if you look over on the left side, you might be able to see a little bit of markings. In other words, just right along. It's not black, but hard to see because of the way the light's hitting it. It's really not an easy one at all. It's here in the summer, spring, summer, fall, sometimes in the winter, all over North Carolina. He does have that look, doesn't he? Like, I went to photograph it, and I think he was just saying, "I dare you. I dare you to photograph me and my brother over here." Wow. There's no real way on this one to say other than it's this brown coloration with this just dingy underparts that these birds have, and it was only about this big, in my neighborhood. So it is a young house wren, and I know it doesn't quite look that way. And as they get older, it'll look more like a house wren. But I thought I'd throw that one in for fun, as if we're not having fun. Okay, what is this? What general group of bird do you think this is? It's poking its head somewhere, right? A couple of groups of birds might do that. What are they? Nuthatch. So that tail, that's not a woodpecker tail, is it? So I would put it as a nuthatch. So the question is, what kind of nuthatch? What do you see on it? You got that brownish red look, or rufous, I'll call it. I like the word rufus. And what about this? It's backlit again. You can see there's light coming from behind, hitting it. And but it's got a little bit of white in the tail. So what we'll do is take a closer look, and we'll look at two species. And I lightened it for you. I edited the photo. I made it easier for you. And the one on the left is different from the one on the right. Do you see the differences? I would say the biggest difference is the amount of white and how it's displayed. It's, this bird has a bolt of white in most of the tail, and then this black band. This bird is black going out, some white, and then a little bit of black again. So then the question is, well, you'd have to guess if you didn't know that there are these differences in their tail. So they're both nuthatches, and the one on the left is the white-breasted nuthatch. have the more white. And the one on the right is actually a red-breasted nuthatch, and it just happens to be up in the mountains. And it's, I think it was the female, and they're just really pale up there. They're not at all like the ones we see at our feeders here, which would come from somewhere further north of here, not from west of here. We have this population that breeds in the mountains, and they're just different. They're real pale. You got just enough. Just enough. There's just enough in this photo. Ah, who did that? Who did that? That's good. All right, you see what we're talking about here. All right, you got a couple of wing bars. You got some markings on the head. Bird is on the ground. Looks like John's been harassing it because he caught it and put a little band on it. So what kind of bird do you think it might be? Just there. A what? A sparrow? Type of sparrow, I agree. What kind do you think it might be with that head pattern? A white-throated. And that's, you know, if you're in your backyard, you're out in the Christmas country in the woods, really, this color, this brown, black, and those white wing bars, and that pattern on the head, that's all you need to see to know it's a white-throated sparrow. I had to go back and do another backlit little bird. So, again, thinking about what you saw before, and then say, for example, the head, the bill, what kind of bird do you think it might be? And I got another angle of this bird right here. Is there anything more dull than this bird? I mean, it's about the dullest bird, even if it had sunlight on it. I mean, really, do you see any marks on this bird? Not much. Back up here, you know, it's got this faint streaking on it. But what about the bill? What does that look like? Who? A warbler. I say that's a warbler bill. So here we are. What kind of tree is it in? Looks like a sweet gum, doesn't it? I think I was in a sweet gum tree when I did this. And there are no leaves on it, so we're back in the winter. And once in a while we get a couple other warblers, as I was saying, here in the winter on the Christmas count. This was on the Christmas count, also at Poland Park. And then this. Is there anything at all on this bird that you see? Boy, there's not much. And that's actually worth noting too. There are some birds that just show almost nothing in the way of field mark. And so this bird does have a little bit of yellow here, which is hard to see. It's just a wash. And so with that dull greenish gray and just gray underneath and a warbler bill, it does have a little bit of a broken iron. So it's an orange crown warbler. And they also often show this little streaking. That one. And so I just wanted to show you, because I wanted to get to those crows. I'm going to skip ahead. I'm just going to show you that this is in the online and in field guides. You can look up the underside of the tail. There's one group, and there's another group. You can identify a lot of warblers, because we have pretty much gotten to the timing of like the show. So you can compare these things online. Here's another one that shows, I zoomed in because this is a bird that you can see the pattern under the tail of this bird on the right. And that you can see it's got a lot of white with a little angled black, and it actually matches the one over here. It's a Cape May warbler. So you can look those things up online to see that. But somebody had asked about a crow. how do you know it's not a crow? And these are some crows. So here's one and here's the other. And not really a good answer, except that the crows don't show those white, it's the shaft on the feather. They just, the two vultures earlier on had the white shafts and the crows don't show it. And when you get a decent look in the sunlight of the crow, they're a different iridescence. So this particular crow has a certain, to me, it's a little more bluish color, and this particular crow, not so much. In fact, if anything, it's a little brownish. And I show these two also because these guys, when they're calling and doing what they do, they tend to have their feathers fluffed out a little bit more on the throat. They tend to look a little more scruffy, and that's a fish crow. So even if they're not calling, and this one is obviously calling, so I knew it was a fish crow and I ran out and took his picture. But I was glad that he was behaving the way he was supposed to, because that's often what they do, whereas the American crows typically do not, even when they're calling, they tend to keep a clean look. We had a bird up in the fir tree, and I just wanted to come back to show you another view, a close-up view. And I don't know, actually, I think that's the yellow bill right there. I wanted to come back to the finch because we talked about purple house finch, so the one in the middle is the purple finch, and you can see it is a little different. These are two of the brightest house finches I've had in my feeder, and I took their picture for that reason. But even when they're bright, they're still more orangey red, and these are more of a purpley red, and they also, the purple finch tends to get more color here in the shoulder, and the house finch tends to retain gray-brown. They don't get color in the shoulder. I once had a picture sent to me. It looked a lot like this. And any guesses as to what that is? Who guessed that? Who? You get the prize. Yeah, the Carolina win. But it was sleeping on somebody's above their front door. And so they went out and took a photo, and the bird's head was tucked, the tail was inside, and all they could see were those little white feathers. And they were like, "Can anybody tell?" And I said, "Yeah, I can tell because I've seen it in my photos." So really, I thought, well, Carolina Wren is a good one to end it on. So we'll stop there because it's about time. It is time, isn't it? Yeah, past time. So these are some birds that you probably can recognize by their tail ends, but your parting shot. Any thoughts on? They're usually in the wetlands. Again, there's really only one bird that has that kind of a white underneath and these little white streaking on the side. But when you see it isolated like this, or you see them scurrying through the vegetation, sometimes that's all you get. But these are gallinules. So anyway, that was just a way to think about looking at birds, different ways of looking at them, different field marks to look at. And then just remember that no matter how bad the photo is, we can figure out what it is. There's a way to figure it out. So take your photos and share them, and we're always happy to look at them. It's really interesting to see, and with computers now, you can clean them up a little bit and make them look good. So yeah, again, Bob sent me a few, and I had a few, and grabbed a few from Jeff, what he had sent me over the years. So again, thanks for coming out. We do have our snacks in the back, and be hanging around. Obviously, we can leave the chairs out. They have a conference going on, and so I know they were already here when I got here. I didn't know there was a conference, but I was glad to see them. And so we can leave them out because they're, I guess, coming back tomorrow. And then snacks are here, and then yeah, we'll be back next month. So, my thanks.